Hello and welcome to the Metaverse Insider's interview series. My name is Josh, and in today's episode, we present part 2 of our interview with David Taylor, co-founder and senior product officer at NextEarth. Continuing our discussion, I recently saw on your website that you are bringing true equity to the metaverse. Could you please expand on this? And would you say that our previous discussion on dynamic NFTs is an aspect of bringing this true equity to the space?
So this relates to the vision of creating a fair digital life, because as businesses come and build on Neos, they pay a platform fee for using our operating system, and 70% of that platform fee payment goes directly to buy NXT from the market. Out of that 70%, 10% of the NXT that's being bought is burned, and 60% gets redistributed directly to a stake reward pool, which means that if I'm an NextEarthian, as we like to call them, then I can access the monetization that is being made from Web3 using everyone's data, including mine, just from the fact that I'm a landowner and I hold NXT and I access this through staking. And then it closes the loop. Right? It gives me complete economic circularity, because companies are using the data of the land I own. They make money on that, and then I get money back. Right? So we basically created the economic structure that Facebook should have done 20 years ago. Also, the other important thing is that we're building towards what we call progressive decentralization. Next year, we're going to start introducing different kinds of DAOs into the NextEarth metaverse, and we're going to start giving more and more agency to our landowners. And the ultimate vision of that is for a DAO to control the metaverse itself, and that agency and the economic incentives, the closed loop economic incentives. The two of these aspects together create the true equity, which is why we always argue that, based on decades of research, creating a metaverse has 3 different pillars, 3 different requirements: a feeling of presence, a standardization, and interoperability. But we also argue that there is a 4th requirement, which is equity. Otherwise, we're going to end up having 5 mega corporations that own 2/3 of the metaverse, just like what happens with Web2 right now. So with Neos and the NXT economy, we actually take care of equity, interoperability, and standardization. And the feeling of presence comes later, because that's the exact last step. That's the dot on the I, or the cross on the T, and which is why we believe that the first wave of the metaverse focusing on VR was a mistake. They started with the last step.
Absolutely. I've seen many startups do it the wrong way. Started with the hardware without the background or ecosystem to support it. There's always been much debate concerning whether VR is truly going to be as fundamental to the metaverse as people make it out to be.
Well, if you ask me, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it's going to be AR. But that's later down the line.
Absolutely. VR is it's an invasive technology that makes 2/3 of the people using it nauseous. That's never going to fly.
So I've tried a few VR headsets by this point, and many applications are an absolute roller coaster, to say the least. Did not do my head very good. 20 minutes and you're feeling slightly nauseous.
Yeah, I played with a dogfight simulator in VR on a PSVR equipment a couple of years ago. It was a space dogfight simulator, so it's like you would go with a space fighter. And I'm not a nauseous guy. I love roller coasters and everything, but this one I almost threw up within like 10 minutes. So
yeah, it's not always pleasant, is it?
Yeah, it's not.
Well, it's not a natural state to be in, is it? I feel we need a sense of reality for this field to progress. So, from a strategic perspective, how would you guys say you're positioning yourselves for a fully fledged metaverse?
So we like to refer to ourselves as a business metaverse, because our main focus is to give tangible benefits of joining Web3 and joining the metaverse to businesses, and then it just trickles down to landowners through our economy. Also, The fact that we're an Earth-based metaverse means that we're pretty unique in this industry. Also, the fact that we're focusing on economy and technology and not, fancy stuff like VR without actual benefit. That means that our positioning feeds the fact that the metaverse is a lot more than just a video game experience, right? Also, the other thing is that, as I said, we're very economy driven, and as our vision is to create a fair digital life, we want to establish that the metaverse can create the fair digital life, but it needs an economic engine, and that is us. And that is driven by our native token NXTT as the internal native currency of the Next Earth metaverse. I've actually I've joined the Next Earth, the original Next Earth team to design the NXTT, because I've been dabbling in token engineering for the last 7 years. And we created, as I mentioned in the beginning, we created a mathematical simulation for the entire economy, which gives us a very unprecedented understanding on the fundamental value of NXTT. And so here's the thing: when you create a virtual economy, you have different actors in that economy that interact with each other in different ways. I create an application, some landowners interact with the application, pay for the services, but then the application pays for the metaverse platform to use the technology, and then you start redistributing the funds to landowners, etc. All of it would be possible with fiat, but it would be a legislative, regulatory, and financial nightmare, and it would put us, the Next Earth team, in the focal point of this business, making us basically a bottleneck in the ecosystem. Moving the whole economic logic to smart contracts and using a native token that manages this enables us basically two things. The first thing is to reduce the need for safety and trust, because basically running the whole economy through a series of smart contracts makes the whole economy trustless, makes us redundant at some point. Our job is to grow and evangelize and build the foundations, and our job is not to maintain. And that is really important, because Next Earth is being built for longevity, and that requires us to be redundant. The other thing is that by issuing the Next Earth token and having our own currency for our own economy, for a temporary time, we can take the role of a central bank, which means that we can make monetary decisions on how to fuel growth within the economy. And that means that we can, basically, it's a form of quantitative easing. We have an NXTT grant program. The most promising companies that would want to make use of our technology, we give them a bag of NXTT so they can basically pre-fund the platform fee payments for up to a year or 2 years. And that means that through this alternative method of quantitative easing, we can accelerate the growth of the ecosystem. And that is an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool. And that is why the Next Earth economy has the productive asset, which is the land, and then also the monetary asset, which is the NXTT. And the two works together. Next Earth is fully bootstrapped. We never took on any venture funding, and that was a conscious decision. And we have a couple partners that are in the final stages of being published, so I cannot name names, but we are talks with large corporations as well as governments. So there are a couple of interesting angles that we are exploring on how to make use of Next Earth. And what we see is that finding the use cases is really simple for us, because we're based on the Earth. It's just trivial.
Absolutely. Well, going back to use cases, do you personally have any preference for certain use cases in this space?
I wouldn't say specifically use case, but what I'm really intrigued by is gamification. because I always claim that the metaverse as an industry is basically a marriage between three different industries: finance, social media, and gaming. And for businesses, both startups and large companies alike, the metaverse will basically provide you the ultimate gamification engine. Any business can be turned into a video game, and any video game can be turned into a business. And that means that at some point we're going to end up having this joint world where whatever you do in the game, there is also an equivalent value of that in the real world, backed by a specific business. And so the more businesses join the metaverse, the more businesses will gamify their own businesses and their own operations. And that is what's going to be able to increase revenues and profitability for these businesses by orders of magnitude. And the whole, like, I'm a math nerd, right? I mean, I design token architecture for a living, and I program AI in my free time. So I'm absolutely passionate about the fact that how do you design a gamified economy that can contain 10 million businesses? Just that question alone is something that can keep you up at night.
Without a doubt, it's a very prompting question. The gamification of all businesses is quite a phenomenal concept to even consider, you know?
Yeah, there is a lot of research that I do in game theory and mechanism design and in economics, exactly because of that. Because ultimately, the metaverse is going to be a game theory question.
Well, that's what many people say, isn't it? That the metaverse is going to be the next entertainment branch of the evolution of the internet.
And guess what? So here's what I think. The one company that figures out how to gamify accounting will make the next $1 trillion company.
Yeah, for sure.
So if anybody can gamify it, it's going to be a golden goose.
Yeah, I think this will generally increase productivity across the whole board if everything were to turn into a game, you know.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. So, what can we expect from Deep Earth within the next half year to a year?
That's a pretty good question. I'm really glad you asked that, because on the 30th of November, we passed what we call the event horizon. And the event horizon was a specific event when we unveiled NEOS, Next Earth OS. And we also launched our own accelerator program for startups that want to build on Web3, so we can give them all the professional know-how as well as our network, connect them to angel investors and VCs, and put them through a program of building a Web3 based prototype and validate their businesses. And then the best ones end up also receiving an NXTT grant. So their platform fee payments are subsidized for the first 2 years. And we also launched our ambassador program, which is going to be the kind of next big step in decentralizing Next Earth as a community. We're recruiting ambassadors. In the last 2 weeks, we had over 100 applicants. And we're recruiting ambassadors who will be local representatives of Next Earth, whose job will be to evangelize the Next Earth metaverse and bring in businesses to build on NEOS. And these ambassadors will generate income from the direct platform payments their businesses pay, which means that, for example, if I'm based in Sao Paulo and I start networking and I end up bringing 20 different businesses on Next Earth who build an application on NEOS, they start paying platform fees every month. I will receive a share of that. Basically, I can build a source of passive income as a Next Earth ambassador. And we are planning to scale the ambassador program to thousands of people, and basically have a Next Earthian in every city on the planet.
That's amazing. What a fantastic outlook on the situation. It's probably one of the best ways to draw in local businesses from all parts of the world.
This is the borrowed from a project that I've done in 2017. It was the first crypto accelerator in Europe. And I did this exact same strategy as head of global expansion there. And we ended up attracting 300 startups over a 5-month period. And I would be surprised if it didn't yield the same results this time.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. So pushing the boat out slightly further, the next 5 to 10 years, what do you expect from the metaverse, and how will Next Earth develop and evolve to fit this space?
I love this question, and I don't know how much time we have left, but I can spend anything between 5 minutes to 15 hours on this question. So I think that the next five to 10 years is going to be mainly about, I mean, let's go through a timeline, right? The next year or so is going to be about giving the tools to the foundation that we just built in the last 18 months. Giving the tools to users, giving the tools for businesses, giving more tools for developers. And for this, I'm talking about the creation of DAOs. I'm talking about resources on the planet, basically archiving geographical data of the planet and increasing the capabilities of what kind of data you can access about the planet on Next Earth. And expanding on these tools in the next year and expanding on the ambassador program next year will basically increase the capabilities for businesses to create real-world use cases. But it will also create its own internal economy, right? Because then resources are being used to do this, to do that. Then a new business comes in and says, oh, I want to use this resource in my app. I want to use that resource in my app. And all of a sudden, you have a multiplayer economy, right? Because the owner of that resource is participating in that business's application. And it's like a bunch of vendors and suppliers interacting with each other. You're recreating a supply chain. And once we have the toolbox in 2013, from 2024 or 2023, 2024 onward, the job is going to be expand and to grow the use cases to over 1 million businesses operating on Next Earth. And this is what I like to refer to as the metaverse of 1 million businesses, because the more businesses build apps on Neos, the more landowners the Next Earth ecosystem will have. The more platform fees will go back to Next Earth landowners, which means that at some point within the next 10 years, if you are a Next Earth landowner, you're going to make enough money to not to have to work. Because in Web3, monetization is given back to you as a user. You finally become a user, not a product like you are in Web2. And that's the vision for the next 10 years.
What a brilliant outlook. Really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. As our final question, with Next Earth being based on Earth, are there any ideas or progress being made on making digital mirrors of actual landmarks within this space?
We want to make this possibility open for landowners themselves at some point, right? So there is an evolution to that. We created the API, and we are expecting developers to build tools using the API to manipulate how lands look and create 3D versions of this, because we're a platform and not a video game. What you can actually do is that even you can build your own application that renders different objects in 3D, give it to designers. A designer would design the Eiffel Tower, right? And then the designer's Eiffel Tower within that software, because it's built on Neos, you could match that to the actual Eiffel Tower on Next Earth, and then you have it. The whole thing is that we don't have to build a 3D engine, unlike most of the metaverse companies, because we can welcome all of them into Next Earth through Neos.
Thank you very much, David. Absolute pleasure having you on today, and look forward to having further conversations. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. Be sure to stay tuned for weekly updates in the industry and content covering all things metaverse. Follow the Metaverse Insider on Twitter and LinkedIn, and visit metaverse.tech for all our content. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.